Welcome to Legally Speaking, a podcast from the Utah Attorney General's Office, Utah's preeminent law firm. Here we will discuss matters of policy and justice, cases that our office is taking on, hot topics in Utah and in the world, but of course, it'll all be done legally speaking.
Hello and welcome to Legally Speaking. I'm Richard Piatt from the Utah Attorney General's Office. This is our first podcast meant to inform you, the public, about what the office is doing legally speaking. My first guest for our inaugural podcast is Melissa Holyoak. She's our Solicitor General. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
I just wanted to inform people about what the Solicitor General does for people that don't know.
Sure. I am the Chief Appellate Advocate for the state of Utah. So I oversee all of our criminal work. Anytime the state is involved in the courts, and that those cases go up to the appellate courts and the Supreme Court, and I oversee that work, both criminal appeals, civil appeals. But I also oversee our division that handles the defense of any challenges to statutes, constitutional challenges to statutes.
Okay. So you defend the state on state law.
Correct.
And then also other things too. Death penalty cases, any kind of legal case involving the state that goes to the Supreme Court, those kinds of things.
Absolutely. So for example, in our criminal work, the county attorneys across the state, they prosecute those claims. And if the felonies are challenged on appeal, then the state will come in and our office will defend those.
And then this recent challenge to the death penalty that we saw at the legislature, you were involved in making arguments about that bill?
Yes, exactly. Some of our attorneys, they testified in committee and explained why the death penalty can be an important tool to law enforcement.
Okay, and this is a conclusion that the office came to after a lot of thought and discussion among the attorneys that are involved in these cases on a day-to-day basis, right?
Yes, absolutely. And we've been working on those cases for many, many years and have developed and looked closely at the issues and policy concerns around that.
So there's a lot of things that we could talk to you about, the death penalty being one of them, but one of the important things that's affecting a lot of people right now and that's making news nationwide is the vaccine mandate. Utah has taken a stand against mandates in certain cases. Why are we choosing this battle? Why is this something that we want to go to anyway?
So an important part of my job is working with other states and my counterparts in other states in forming coalitions, multi-state coalitions, and challenging federal overreach. What the Constitution did when it was ratified was it really was a balance of two sovereigns. We have the states and the national government. And in the Constitution, the national government was given very limited powers: taxation, war, interstate commerce. The states, on the other hand, were indefinite powers. And that's because they are close to the people. They're governing the ordinary affairs of the people, the everyday affairs. So part of my job is to make sure that those powers stay in balance, that when the federal government tries to do things, regulation or whatnot, that kind of encroaches into that we keep them in their lane. And that's why we chose to challenge this OSHA mandate.
Okay, so let me present a couple arguments that you've probably heard.
Okay.
So there's a lot of people that are like saying, we're dealing with a pandemic here. People are getting sick, people are dying, and vaccinations have been scientifically proven in their view to help prevent serious illness from the disease. So are you against vaccinating people and protecting them against this disease, or what's this all about? Because really, we're talking about two different things. We're talking about the power of the government and then a public health issue. Is that true?
Absolutely. And I'm not against vaccines. In fact, I am personally vaccinated. My family, I chose to have my children vaccinated. But this is an issue about who has the authority to do this. And here, the mandate was promulgated under OSHA, which typically regulates occupational hazards. We challenged this and we got to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court agreed with us that OSHA does not have the authority to do that here. OSHA has the authority to regulate occupational hazards, but this is a hazard that is everyday life, like crime, pollution, or other communicable diseases. And OSHA doesn't have the authority to do that.
So the mandates are coming about because we as a society can't agree on how to handle the pandemic. And so government is coming up with a solution that you're saying the state of Utah's position is it's not appropriate.
Exactly. And it might be a policy that you agree with at some point. But if you allow the government to erode the Constitution and issue policies that they like when they don't have the authority to do so, you're setting a precedent for years ahead when there may be a policy you don't agree with. And then they'll again abuse that power.
This whole concept of federal overreach is another common thing that we see over and over again when it comes to land use and different kinds of policies, that kind of thing.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So the other confusing thing about the vaccine mandate is that there isn't just one fight over the vaccine mandate. There are actually four.
Mm-hmm.
So list those four and also give us perhaps the status of each of them.
Okay.
Where is Utah in either requiring vaccines or not requiring vaccines for certain people?
Okay, so there were four mandates, federal mandates. We have challenged all of them on the same basis that the federal government did have the authority to issue those. The OSHA one that I mentioned, that was overturned by the Supreme Court. There was also one that applied to Medicaid and Medicare workers. And that one, the Supreme Court disagreed with us, and that is in effect. There are two other mandates, including a mandate relating to preschools, the Head Start programs, and that one is currently stayed and in litigation. And then the last one is federal contractors, and that has to do with mandates for any federal contractor employee, and that one is also currently stayed, meaning it's not in effect, and the government is appealing that right now.
So why is the Head Start mandate a separate argument? Why is that a separate case? Why is it separated from other public schools or other?
The Head Start program is funding that's provided to the states for preschool programs.
Okay.
And they made it a condition of that specific program.
Okay, so like the healthcare workers, the common theme here is the federal funding going to the program.
Correct.
So recently, the mandate for employers of more than 100 people was struck down by the Supreme Court, but the mandate for healthcare workers was upheld.
Yes.
What's the difference between those two cases? Why was one rejected and one upheld?
And again, it was about who has the authority to do so. There were 4 dissents on the Medicaid Medicare worker case, but in that specific instance, 6 justices found that there was statutory authority for CMS to issue those regulations.
Okay, so there's still a lot of confusion out there from people, probably less so now that this argument's been going on and people are finding out for themselves what applies to them and what doesn't. But a lot of people are wondering, does this apply to me? So if I work for a tech company in Utah County that has 100 employees, and the employer has decided that it is going to require a vaccine, is there anything that anybody can do about that? What can an employee do?
Yes. So even though the OSHA mandate is no longer applicable, and in fact the government has pulled that regulation, companies are free to issue their own corporate policies and implement their own policies requiring mandates. But I should say the Utah State Legislature has passed a statute just this past November, which provides exemptions for that. So if an employer gives a statement to their employee, if an employee gives a statement to their employer that says, I did not get vaccinated because of a medical reason or a religious belief reason, or just a sincerely held personal belief reason, gives that statement to the employer must exempt them from that policy.
Okay, so what about if you're working for a tech company that has under 100 employees?
There's no difference. It does, well, in fact, the Utah statute does exempt employers with less than 15 employees, but there is no difference for how large the company is. All of the employers must comply with those exemptions.
Okay.
And it also doesn't matter where the company is headquartered. And we've heard from constituents on this. So basically, constituents would say, my company is headquartered in this state, and in that state, there are no exemptions or anything that allows that. And their corporate policy is that everyone must get vaccinated. But if they're doing business in Utah, they have to follow Utah law.
Okay. So another item of confusion is federal employees. If someone is a federal employee that works for the BLM, does the mandate apply to that person?
It could if the court determines that will go into effect. At this point, that federal contractor employee mandate is stayed. That means it has no effect, no impact on any federal contractor employee, but it's still in the courts. So we'll see what the courts do with that.
So for now, federal government employees are kind of on hold. Federal contractor. What's the difference between full-time federal employee and a federal contractor? Is there a distinction there?
There is a distinction, yes. A federal employee is working directly for the federal government. A federal contractor, the federal government has a contract with some company or sometimes even the state, and then those employees work for that contractor who has the contract with the federal government.
Okay. Go over again the different ways that an employee can be exempt from a vaccine mandate, from being vaccinated, if they feel strongly enough about it that they don't. I personally know somebody that I used to work with that was released from his job, fired, because he chose not to get a vaccine. And I'm assuming that he did it for personal or religious reasons. Why couldn't he have just found some way to say, I don't really want the vaccine, I'll perhaps take a test every so often to ensure that I'm healthy?
Sure. Well,
do those people have any legal standing in court if they challenge their employment status?
And I'm not sure when that action was taken, but the statute actually does directly apply to that. It provides that a company cannot take any adverse action against an employee for a vaccination exemption. In other words, if the employee correctly follows the law, provides the statement that says they want to be exempt from any corporate vaccination policy for medical reasons or religious reasons, or just a sincerely held personal belief, that the employer must honor that and cannot take adverse action, cannot not fire the person, cannot demote them or decrease their wages, nor can an employer refuse to hire someone for that purpose as well.
So what about the personal information that goes along with these decisions that are being made? Does an employer have a right to delve into your private matters, to maybe do some kind of a check to see whether your religious beliefs really do coincide with the policy, or whether your health really is a factor in not getting the vaccine, or in getting the vaccine for that matter?
The statute doesn't go that far, but I would say that the law would protect an individual from that. But even more so on personal information, employers cannot keep copies of employees' personal vaccination cards.
Okay. So we're at the state capitol right now, and outside our window, I'm hearing some school children that are coming up for the legislative session for a tour. And that reminds me of another question. What about in schools? Does individual school districts, do they have a say in whether the students should be vaccinated, whether the teachers should be vaccinated, whether the custodians are vaccinated? How does that all come out in the wash?
Well, in addition to the statute allowing these exemptions, there was another statute that talks specifically about government employees. And it says that any government, including political subdivisions of the state, cannot require vaccinations.
Okay. All right. Any final words on the vaccine mandate? This is a lot of information all at once, but we really tried to answer the main questions that we're getting and that you're probably getting from your own friends.
Yes.
How often do people come up to you and ask you about these kinds of matters?
All the time. But we also have created a webpage on our website that can provide answer some of the frequently asked questions regarding mandates and some of these cases.
Okay, and we'll have a full slate of contacts that you can look up our website. And if you have any suggestions, we suggest that you email us too. That'll be following shortly. I'm Richard Piatt for now with Melissa Holyoak. Thanks for joining us for Legally Speaking.